We're not Democrats, so now you can sit. Ashley Hinson flipped her seat from blue to red. 2 of those happened in Iowa in 2020 and hasn't taken her foot off the gas since. A rising star in the Republican Party. And you know, you hear those words a lot. I'm already going off script. You hear those words a lot, a rising star. When you have a congressperson that is a rising star, that means all of us have an outsized voice in Washington, D.C. So Ashley's fate is our fate, and we couldn't be more proud of that. So yes, our Congresswoman is a rising star in the Republican Party. About 3 weeks ago, I was talking to Kevin McCarthy. He could not say enough about her. But yet at the same time, if you recall, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I believe it was, when people needed a voice here in this state on a budget vote for something that's as critical to this state as ethanol, guess who planted her feet and stood firm along with her other 3 colleagues? Our Ashley Hinson did. With Ashley Hinson, we can have our cake and eat it too. We can have a rising star, and we can have someone that we know will absolutely, positively be our voice, period. That's what we've got in her. She is also serving on the House Appropriations Committee and Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party. I can't think of anybody else we need more than Ashley on that committee to look them in the eye and give them one clear message. Chinese Communist Party, you are wrong. She won re-election in 2022 by 8.2%. Think about that. In our new 2nd district, 8.2%. That's on all of you. That's on all of you for recognizing what we have. She was Nancy Pelosi's worst nightmare, and she will continue to be a nightmare for the Democrats. I'll guarantee you Nancy Pelosi has dreamed of Ashley Hinson, and I'll guarantee you she just shivered when she thought of it, and that makes me happy. Ashley is bringing a dose of Iowa common sense to Congress and fighting the Biden administration's agenda. That agenda, I don't know what the professional term is, but the agenda of left-wing nuts. She's reining in wasteful spending, securing the border, and taking on China. Ashley is a strong conservative voice. We know that. She is a proven commodity now. We have 6 people in our congressional delegation. And let me tell you something. For our small state, we have what I would call the most voice, the most power. That means all of you have the most power in Washington, D.C. because of these 6 fantastic individuals. So, in our first-in-the-nation state, despite the Democrats screwing everything up, the Republicans are first in the nation, and today we're going to celebrate one of the shining stars and a lady we are proud of, Congresswoman Ashley Hinson. Come on out.
I got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's...
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Barbecue Bash. Are we excited to be here? Woo! Thank you, Jeff, for the kind introduction. It is clearly our biggest barbecue bash yet, and that is thanks to all of you. Thank you so much for coming out and spending a little bit of time with all of us on a Sunday afternoon, eating some good barbecue. I hope you all had enough to eat. How about that band, right? We're an amazing band. And if I dare say, I think we have a pretty good lineup of speakers for you here today. So I'm excited that you're going to be able to hear from our great guests. But the first thing I want to do today is I want to thank my family. My boys, Max and Jax, and my husband, Matt, are somewhere in the room, and then I don't know where they went, but obviously you saw them on the stage, and they are the reason why I do this job. I'm in this fight because of them, and I I couldn't do it without their help and support. So thank you to my husband and my children. Okay, so how many of you were in this room last year? I guess a little bit further away, but how many have been back to the Barbecue Bash? That's awesome. Okay, well, thank you for coming back. How many of you are new to the Barbecue Bash this year? Oh, that's amazing. Look at this. Well, thank you for coming. It is just an amazing feat to get this many people together and celebrate what we all hold near and dear. We set out some pretty important goals in the last Barbecue Bash. We set out to fire Nancy Pelosi, and guess what? We did that! So we fired Nancy Pelosi, but guess what? Now it's time to fire Joe Biden. And the path to doing that starts right here at the Barbecue Bash, and it runs through Iowa's first in the nation caucuses. So again, you're going to hear from some pretty incredible people on the stage today who are all vying to take out Joe Biden as president and take our country back from the radical left. I want to introduce you now to a couple of my amazing partners in Washington, D.C., Congresswoman Miller-Meeks and Congressman Zach Nunn. We have a strong Iowa delegation for you. You got to get to know these people, and they're going to speak for just a minute.
Well, it's great to be here with you. Thank you to all our veterans. You know, Abraham Lincoln famously said, if you call a dog's tail a leg, how many legs does it have? 5. Now, just because you call a tail a leg doesn't make it so. Well, just because President Biden says the economy is great doesn't make it so.
That's right.
Just because President Biden says we have operational control of our border doesn't make it so. And just because President Biden says he's not colluding with the Chinese Communist Party when his Granholm calls to see about releasing oil from the SPR doesn't make it so. So if you want someone who is going to take a charge to the Chinese Communist Party and prevent them from buying Iowa farmland, you want to re-elect Ashley Hinson. If you want someone who's going to look at every appropriation bill and make sure that our spending is checked, you want to re-elect Ashley Hinson. And if you want someone that's going to make sure we fund our border control agents and get operational control and we fund our law enforcement, you want to re-elect Ashley Hinson.
That's right.
And let's not forget, if you want parents' choice in education and parents to matter, you want to re-elect Ashley Hinson because she'll fire Joe Biden.
Right.
God bless you. God bless Iowa. God bless Ashley Hinson.
Team, what an exciting time to be an Iowan. And while we are all sweating it out right now, 6 months from now, Iowa gets to decide the future of where our country's going. And it starts with each one of you. The exciting part is, Ashley Hinson has helped take our state from a place where it had been a hardcore blue district and flipped it. And with Ashley Hinson's leadership, she has made Iowa all red for the first time since the Eisenhower administration. Think about what that means. There are a lot of incredible leaders in here at every single level who are making that happen. From our state legislators, our state senators, this is a place where Ashley cut her teeth. She led on the Appropriations Committee at the state level to make sure that we each had lower taxes, more money in our pockets, and a result, when Washington failed, Ashley's Iowa was the one leading the recovery after COVID. Ashley, thank you for that. And now she gets to sit on the Appropriations Committee at the federal level. She has made agriculture a centerpiece of where not just Iowa's future is going, but where the country is going to secure both our food and our fuel as we march forward. Ashley, your leadership is driving true energy independence and food security for our country. Thank you. And team, when we look out here, we look at the offerings that Ashley Hinson provided for us at the State House and now at the federal level. Securing our border, standing up to China when it comes to combating fentanyl, making sure that our kids and our parents have a voice in their schools, and ultimately making sure that families like yours and like hers are going to have a much better and brighter future. Ashley, Washington is great because of what you brought from Iowa, and what I see in this room today is every Iowan who helped get you there. So together, team, let's make sure 2024 is just the great success that you gave Iowa and Ashley not only 4 years ago. Thank you, Ashley.
Don't we have the best delegation? It's awesome. I am so lucky to work with true friends in Washington. We need to make sure we send our congressional delegation back. Well, the reason why we're in this fight, it's because the radical left has declared war on middle America and our values, right? We see that assault every single day. Their vision for America looks very different than ours. They have opened up our southern border. They have spent trillions of dollars we don't have. They have let criminals out onto our streets, and they've turned our schools into woke indoctrination centers. I don't know about you, but I think they're ignoring the real kitchen table issues that you and I are all talking about at our houses every night and with our small businesses every day. It is harder to put food on the table. It is harder to put fuel in our cars right now. But we're not going to sit on the sidelines as Joe Biden destroys our country, are we? No, we're not going to sit on the sidelines as the left forces girls to share bathrooms with boys and compete against them in sports, are we? No, we're not going to sit on the sidelines and the left says kids belong to the government or a school system, are we? No, we're not. Not on our watch, right? Are you with me? We're going to stand up. So they did try to bring this right into our backyard. Last year, the Linn-Mar School District, where both my boys go to school in the public school system, tried to implement a policy that would allow school employees to help a student transition their gender at school without telling the parents about it. So, a boy could tell the school that he's a girl, he could use the girls' bathroom, he could play girls' sports, or even on an overnight field trip room with a girl. That just sounds unbelievable, right? But that was reality. But let me be clear about one thing. The mama bears, well, we certainly stood up, I can tell you that, but kids don't belong to schools. Kids don't belong to the government. Kids belong to parents, and parents make the best choices for our children. I always say we are so blessed and lucky to live in Iowa, and a lot of that is because we have people like Governor Kim Reynolds leading the way and standing up for parents. She stood up for our kids and parents and said no to that woke nonsense. I'd also like to thank our governor for standing up for life. She has relentlessly fought to protect the unborn. Thank you to our state legislators and the governor for doing that. So while Governor Reynolds is showing folks here in Iowa how we get things done, I am taking that same fight to President Biden in Washington, D.C. What you're telling me as I'm out in all 22 counties of the district is that you all just want to live your life, get the government out of the way. Common sense leadership is what we need in this country. But President Biden has attacked common sense at every single turn. You know what? This mama bear says, enough is enough. So I'm fighting for an America with lower taxes, high-paying jobs, safe streets, and most importantly, strong families, where our enemies fear us, and it's understood that our rights, they come from God, not the government, right? Speaking of the government, let me be clear here. I will not stand for the un-American politicization of our justice system under President Joe Biden. We are continuing to fight back against the Biden administration's disgraceful prosecution of a political opponent, and we are going to get to the bottom of the Biden family's corruption. You can count on it. The days of laws not applying to them are over, so hear me now. Accountability is coming. Can we all agree that President Biden is the worst president of our lifetimes? I think we all agree on that. As part of a new generation of Republican leaders, I am fighting against that madness. We are challenging the status quo. We are bringing that Iowa common sense to Washington, D.C., but we can't do that effectively until we finally fire Joe Biden and end his political career in Washington, D.C. Are you with me to get that done? I'm so glad you have my back on that one. I'm going to talk about something else I'm pretty passionate about. Don't let the Democrats tell you that they are the party of women. Liberals think men can get pregnant. Liberals no longer call people like me mom, they call us birthing people. And liberals, well, let's face it, they just can't define what a woman is. It's laughable, but sadly it's true, right? That's where we found ourselves. But I think in this room, we all know what a woman is, don't we? We're never going to let anyone tell us differently, and we are going to fight to protect women and moms every single day. That's the reason why I'm in this fight. I'm in this fight because I'm a mom. I am in Congress to be a voice for all of us minivan driving moms who are tired of the government burning through our paychecks like there's no tomorrow, or we're sick of being told that we have to adhere to this woke ideology that's being pushed on us. I am in this fight because I couldn't look at my boys, Max and Jax, and say to them, I am doing everything I possibly can to make sure that your future is secured for the next generation. So I will continue to fight for them and for your families. And oh, by the way, minivan driving mom, right? I hit 200,000 miles on my minivan yesterday. So I have been putting those miles on as I'm driving through the district. I will never take my foot off the gas. There is so much at stake. So, bottom line, we cannot afford 4 more years of Joe Biden in the White House. We have to take our country back. Are we going to get it done? Yes, we are. We can make America run more like Iowa, but we have to fire Joe Biden to do it. The way I see it, the future of America is on the line. The future of America is on the ballot. And taking our country back starts right here in Iowa, and it starts today. So I am so glad that you get to hear from these great presidential candidates today. We fired Nancy Pelosi. Now it's time to fire Joe Biden. And remember this, Iowa picks presidents. Let's go get it done. So while it's the honor of my lifetime to serve as your voice for Iowa's 2nd Congressional District, I would say we have some pretty cool leadership right here in the state of Iowa. I think our governor is the best governor in the country. Do you agree? And I know we got some other governors in the House, but let's face it, Kim Reynolds is tops for a reason. She respects you, she respects families, she respects life, and she will stand for our values every single day. It's now my honor to introduce my friend, Governor Kim Reynolds.
So many familiar faces in the audience. How lucky are we to have Ashley Hinson representing us in Washington, D.C.? Woo! I am so honored to be back at Ashley's annual barbecue. It is great to be here, and I want to just start by saying thank you to each and every one of you that are here. I want to say thank you for being engaged. I want to say thank you for caring not only about Iowa, but for caring about this country. And let me tell you, it matters. I believe the engagement that we're seeing today is one of the reasons that Iowa was one of a few states that actually saw a red wave this last election cycle. So give yourselves a round of applause. We did it. We did it. And most importantly, I want to say thank you for being here to support Ashley. This young woman is so incredible. She is a rock star out in Washington, D.C. She is fearless. She is effective. She is a problem solver. She is a leader. And her caucus and the leadership saw that right away from the appointments that she was given. And she fights every single day for our farmers to protect the southern border. This mini drive-in mom is fighting every day for parents and the unborn. And what I love about Ashley, and honestly our entire all-Republican delegation, is getting results out in Washington, D.C. And you know what? That is what happens when you elect Republicans. We get things done. And this last legislative session was just the same. We had another historic legislative session. When I was traveling the state and I said parents matter, it wasn't just a campaign slogan. It was a promise. And working with the legislature, I am proud to say that we delivered. In the first 2 weeks of the legislative session, we passed the boldest universal school choice program in the country, leading off an educational freedom all across the nation. We didn't stop there. We brought transparency into the classroom so parents could see what the curriculum was. Yes, it's so important. We protected our kids from woke indoctrination, from CRT, from irreversible surgeries. We said our children will not be experiments. And it's so sad that we had to put this in statute, but it's where we're at today, and working with the legislature, we did. We passed a law that said parents will be the primary decision makers for their children's education. Radical, right? They lost their minds over that. No co-parenting in the state of Iowa. The next week, we followed that with tort reform, something they've been working on forever. And after that, we said, we're not going to talk about cutting government. We're actually going to shrink it. I cut 21 agencies from my cabinet. We went from 37 down to 16, and it will save Iowa taxpayers $215 million over 4 years, and that is conservative. There's more to come. Stay tuned. We actually can make government smaller. It can happen. And on top of that, the House and the Senate came together in the last 2 weeks of the session, and we passed one of the largest property tax cuts in the history of our state. And I can tell you with great certainty, we're not done cutting taxes. Now, as governors, we like to compete, and it's a good thing, because when we're competing, you're all winning. So I got to give my good Florida governor from the South just a little bit of grief. Did you see the headlines this week? Move over, Florida. Iowa's the #1 state to retire in. Woo! We're not going to tax your pension anymore. And then, of course, we called our great legislators back to the state capitol, and once again, we passed the fetal heartbeat bill with more votes than we did in 2018, and we made sure they knew it wasn't a hypothetical law, that we are going to do everything we can to protect the unborn. So real quick, what I like to say is Iowa and many of the Republican-led states across this country are every day showcasing the alternative to the chaos, the crisis, the overreach, the insanity that we see happening from the Biden administration. We are making sure that I think just Iowans are sick and tired of the incompetence that they're seeing. They're sick and tired of the weakness on the world stage. They're sick and tired of the elite lecturing us while they're taking away our freedoms at will. And most importantly, they're just sick and tired of the disconnect to reality. This is a party that thinks men can get pregnant, can't define a woman, thinks parents are terrorists, and think biological men should not only play in girls' sports, but shower with them. It is crazy, and it needs to stop. And we do that by re-electing Ashley Hinson. So, here we are. So I'm going to call on you once again. Thank you. We need you to continue what you're doing, and this crowd gives me great hope. So I need you to continue fighting. We need you to continue to stand up. We need you to continue to show up, because it all starts here in Iowa with the First in the Nation caucus on January 15th. And we need to set a record. We need to show up, and we need to demonstrate the country that we know that we take this job very seriously. So with your help, we're going to kick off the caucuses, and we are going to put a Republican in the White House in 2024, and you're going to get to hear from a lot of great candidates here today. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being engaged. Thanks for caring. And thank you for giving me the incredible honor of serving as the governor of this amazing state. I love you. Thank you. God bless you. God bless all of you. And we got a damn good chairman of the Republican Party and Chairman Kaufman.
Do we have a bench? Do we have leadership, or why? Have meaning, because now we have a conservative Supreme Court, and because of that, we can move the ball forward. And you know who is as responsible for that as anyone in the entire country? His name is Chuck Grassley. I'm going to end right on that. Supreme Court, Supreme Court, Supreme Court. Senator Grassley, come on up.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for giving Barbara and me the opportunity to serve another 6-year term in the United States Senate. Thank you very much. So I'm here, like the rest of you are, because you want to see Ashley Hinson reelected to the Congress of the United States. And I'm here to tell you that I'm here because she's a person of accomplishment. There's so much that she has done as a member of Congress, but just look at her life before she went to Congress. You saw the discipline that goes into playing the violin, and that sort of discipline is very necessary if you're going to be a member of Congress, in fact, probably more discipline. And let me say this as well, that she I guess, cut her teeth well as a member of the Iowa legislature, the Iowa House of Representatives. She was chairman of the Transportation Committee there. And I'll bet when she decided to run for Congress, some of her colleagues would advise her, well, why would you want to do that? You're a good state legislator. I'll bet you that she was willing to take on that challenge, because we had this district not served well by a person of the other political party. And she was willing to take on that challenge. And her whole life before that was one of competency, one of deliberation, thinking things out well, and being trained for whatever she wanted to do in her life. And she took that responsibility, and in the process changed a blue district to a red district. And then she accomplished that with her great service at first term of office by winning re-election, not just by a little bit, but by 8%, and is in a strong position to be re-elected again. I see Ashley working hard She's established herself well enough, even before she was sworn in, to be selected to be a member of the Appropriations Committee. And there's very few freshmen get on the House Appropriations Committee. So just think of that, the leadership thinking well of her in that capacity and still continuing in that position. And then you know the problems we're having with China almost every day, particularly with them sending fentanyl to our country through the cartels of Mexico and killing 103,000 people by drug overdose. She's on that committee that is going to study hard and stay on top of the threat that China is to the United States of America and to the world. And that's a select committee, and she's a member of that select committee. So she's on top of everything that's important to Iowans as a member of the Appropriations Committee and the threat to our national security that China is right now. Now that's all about Ashley. Well, what's so important is not only to have a House of Representatives that's Republican, but a Senate that is Republican and a Republican presidency. It's so important. You know, you don't like the changes going on in Washington any more than I do, but let me say this to you. You shouldn't be surprised what they're trying to accomplish, because they ran on a platform of transforming America, where I hope you and I believe, as I do, you run on a platform to preserve America. So whether it's inflation or the border not being enforced, or whether it's the big budget deficits that they brought about, which caused that inflation, we need a change in Washington, and we're going to get that change the same time that we re-elect Congresswoman Hinson to the House of Representatives. And between now and then, she's going to keep up her good work, and I'm going to continue to keep the FBI responsible. Thank you very much.
You guys got so excited when I mentioned the word Grassley, I just got to throw out my second two-word phrase in association with Chuck Grassley. Actually, I'm going to go three. Nail Hunter Biden. America's version of a corrupt crime family. I hope I wasn't supposed to say that. How many times have I said that in my life? Our second speaker today, I've already told you, and I think all of you know this, intuitively know that our 6-person delegation gives us all an outsized voice. That's exactly what Iowans have earned. It's also the reason why we have a First in the Nation caucus. Showing up in groups like this, showing up at events like this, showing up on caucus night like this, supporting our terrific delegation. You folks have deserved to be First in the Nation and deserve a delegation like we have at Grassley and like Ernst. You've earned that. Congratulations. Joni Ernst is a voice for life. Joni Ernst is a voice for conservative values. As the first female combat veteran, Joni Ernst is a voice for veterans. Right now, she is leading the fight for our ag bill. And I will guarantee you in the forefront of her mind is those small family farmers, the Iowa values that she's espoused since she grew up in southern Iowa. So with no further ado, the second in a huge all-star team that we have, our Senator Joni Ernst. Let's give her a round of applause.
All right.
out and supporting our friend Ashley Hinson. Okay, by show of voice, who's proud to be an Iowan? That's right. Who's proud to be an American? Oh, God bless you all. So I am so glad to hear that, and it's good to see so many friends in the room today. You know, I was out with a group of veterans here in Iowa just a couple days ago, and this older veteran, he came in and he had a hat on, and his hat said, "I want the America I fought for." Don't you all agree? And I can tell you, just as Jeff said, we have a delegation that is fighting for Iowa and for our great United States of America. It is so important that we keep doing that. And one, we have got to fight for border security. I think that President Joe Biden forgot that we have a sovereign nation with borders. And I can tell you this, that our friend Ashley Hinson has been leading on border security. She has actually gone to the border to see what's going on, unlike our borders are, okay? So we have to stop the flow of illegal migration and fentanyl coming into the United States of America. So we need border security. Second, we need energy security here in the United States of America. So this has really gotten under my craw. Okay, so I serve on the Armed Services Committee. I am a veteran. I am so proud to have served our great United States of America. And you know what President Joe Biden's priority has been for our military? To electrify all the vehicles in the military. That's right, electric vehicles. What? Fire Biden? What? Okay, so I was a transportation company commander, folks. So my company drove all around Kuwait and up into Iraq delivering supplies. I cannot see our young men and women in uniform, you know, just kind of stopping along the road and be like, "Oh, excuse me, adversary, where's the nearest charging station?" Right, folks? Okay, so energy security. We've got it here in the United States of America. For heaven's sakes, let's use it. Energy security. And third, national security. President Biden has all been about appeasing our adversaries, including China. That's right. So Congresswoman Hinson, Ashley has done a marvelous job. She was selected to serve on the Select Committee on China. And she and the other colleagues in the House are focusing on China and what we can do as a great United States of America to push back on Chinese influence. And you should thank her every single day for standing up for our American values and protecting our interests around the world. So national security, okay, border security, energy security, national security, that's what Iowans stand for, that's what Iowans want. Thank you all so much for being on that front line, welcoming all these incredible presidential candidates into our great state, and talking about the issues that matter to Iowans and to all Americans. And thank you all so much for stepping up and helping my dear friend Ashley Hinson. Folks, she is a fighter. She has fought from day one, and she is going to continue fighting for Iowa values and America's values, whether it's right here in Iowa or out there in the swamp in Washington, D.C. So God bless you all. Thanks so much. Thanks for being proud Iowans, and thank you all for being proud, strong Americans. God bless you all. Thank you.
All right, everybody, are we fired up or what? We have the best people here in Iowa, don't we? I want to just take a quick minute to point out something very special and near and dear to my heart. We wanted to highlight today veteran suicide. We have far too many veterans who have served our country and put their lives on the line and came home and felt like they had no other choice. So we have a display over here in the corner for Salute to the Fallen. And John Thompson, if you are interested in learning more about their amazing organization, please do. It's something I'm very passionate about and doing work on in Washington, D.C. Would our veterans and our law enforcement and first responders who are here today please stand? You are the people who are keeping us safe. Freedom is not free. Thank you. Thank you. It's because of brave men and women like you that we get to do this every single day. So thank you so much. All right, are we ready to hear from our speakers? Yes. So our very first presidential candidate we're going to hear from hails from the Iowa of the South, shall we say. Just like Iowa, Florida kept their businesses and schools open. They stand up for parents, and they let freedom flourish. Please welcome to the stage Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
It's a Springsteen song, it's a ride in a Chevrolet. It's a man on the moon and fireflies in June and kids selling lemonade.
Hello, Cedar Rapids!
Farms, it's open.
Are you ready to send Joe Biden back to his basement in Delaware? Now, we have, my wife and I have 6, 5, and 3-year-old kids, so when we're in the White House, none of our kids are going to be bringing cocaine into the White House. Don't worry about that. In fact, before we took our first trip to Iowa with them a couple months ago, I played for them a famous movie from the 1980s that involved Iowa. And so we happened to be at the Clayton County Fair the other day, and before we got back on the bus, we had a little time. So my 5-year-old son and I were having a catch over by the corn, and he said, "Daddy, is this heaven?" And I said, "No, it's Iowa." I want to thank Ashley Hinson for her great work. I want to thank your governor, Kim Reynolds, for her great work. And I want to thank your Iowa legislature for, I'll tell you what, we're competing between Florida and Iowa, but isn't it great to have 2 states dedicated to freedom? This country is in decline, economic decline, military decline, cultural decline. We as Republicans cannot be content with just managing this decline a little bit better than the Democrats. And I'm running for president because we must reverse the decline of America. We must. I'm a blue-collar kid. I work minimum wage jobs to be able to get through school. I believe in the American dream, and I see it slipping away, and I know we must restore it. I'm an Iraq veteran, a former naval officer, and I'm proud to have served in the greatest country in the history of the world, and yet I see America is weak today, and we must revive American strength. As a dad of a 6, a 5, and a 3-year-old, I know how important it is to protect and preserve the rights of parents in our society, and we must do that nationwide. Now, here's the thing. To do what we need to do to fix America, it requires leadership, it requires vision, and it requires courage. The time for talk is over. We need people that produce results. And in Florida, most people run for office, they overpromise and underdeliver. We made bold promises to the people of Florida. We met every single commitment we made, and in fact, we over-delivered on our promises as governor. We enacted universal school choice for every parent in the state of Florida. We enacted and expanded Second Amendment rights in the state of Florida. We signed the heartbeat bill to protect the innocent human life in Florida. We stood to ensure our schools are about education, not indoctrination. We eliminated critical race theory in our K-12 schools. We prohibited gender ideology in our K-12 schools. And if we had to stand up to Disney to make that happen, we stood up to Disney and stood up for our parents. We have kneecapped ESG in the state of Florida. We've stood up against illegal immigration by banning sanctuary cities, sending our troops to the border to help Texas, and even transporting illegal aliens to beautiful Martha's Vineyard. We stand up for the blue, and we prevent the defunding of police, and Florida's crime rate is at a 50-year low as a result. We have cut taxes by $2.7 billion. We have paid down, since I've been governor, 25% of our state's total outstanding debt. Can you imagine if they actually did that in Washington, how much better off we would be? We have prohibited the purchasing of land in the state of Florida by the Chinese Communist Party and its affiliates. And when the world went mad during COVID, when common sense suddenly became an uncommon virtue, the state of Florida stood as a refuge of sanity, as a citadel of freedom, not only for Floridians, but for Americans and even for people around the world. We refuse to allow our state to descend into some type of Faucian dystopia. We chose freedom over Fauciism. So we need to produce those kind of results in Washington, D.C. We will reverse Bidenomics and give the middle class a chance in this country again. We're going to stop Congress from spending this country into oblivion. They caused the inflation with the spending and the borrowing and the debt. We need a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and we need term limits for members of the U.S. Congress. We will get the bureaucracy off the backs of small businesses and our farmers and our individual entrepreneurs. We will ensure energy independence in this country. Oil, gas, biofuels from here in the Midwest. We don't want to rely on hostile regimes, and we are not going to force Americans to buy electric vehicles and to make us more reliant on communist China. We will be the president that finally ends the issue of the southern border once and for all. We'll declare it to be a national emergency on day one. We'll put the military on the southern border. Yes, we will build a border wall, but we will lean in against the Mexican drug cartels because they are poisoning this country. If they try breaking into our country with fentanyl, we are going to authorize deadly force. They're going to end up stone cold dead at the border. We will also usher in a reckoning for the federal government's disastrous COVID-19 lockdown policies, mandate policies. People like Fauci must be held accountable. We will bring that accountability so that this never happens in our country ever again. We will stand up for the rights of parents. We cannot allow our school systems to be tools of leftist indoctrination any longer. Education, not indoctrination. We will reconstitutionalize the federal government. We will slay the administrative state, and we will end the weaponization of government. You're going to get a new FBI director on day one. You're going to get the DOJ cleared out. There's going to be a single standard of justice in this country again, and we are going to stop the weaponization of federal power. As a veteran, we understand that we cannot have a successful military if it's indulging in social experimentation, woke agenda, and political ideology. On day one as Commander-in-Chief, we rip the woke out, we rip the social experimentation out, and we will restore our military to mission first like it belongs. Here's the deal. 2024 is make or break for this country. Freedom is fragile. Our founding fathers understood this. When Benjamin Franklin walked out of the Constitutional Convention, he was asked, did you give us a republic or a monarchy? And he said a republic if you can keep it. Because they understand each generation is going to be called upon to step up and preserve freedom when it's under assault. And I'm motivated for this fight because I want my kids and eventual grandkids to have the same opportunities that we have. But I'm also motivated because I understand we owe a debt of gratitude to people throughout the generations who have fought for this country so that we can be free. I used to fly up to Washington, D.C., and there was a particular route you can take going into Reagan Airport. It was flush parallel to the National Mall. If you looked outside the left side of the plane, you saw beautiful views up close. Lincoln Memorial, the reflecting pool, the Washington Monument, and perched on the hill, the beautiful U.S. Capitol building. And you felt a sense of pride as an American because those symbolize the ideas that make this country unique. But I figured out after doing that trip a few times, the best monuments weren't out the left side of the plane. Because if you looked out the right side of the plane, you looked over the Potomac River, you saw a series of very small, nondescript monuments orderly arranged over the rolling hills of a place called Arlington National Cemetery. And it occurred to me then, and I believe now, you can have the best Constitution in the world, you could have the best Declaration of Independence in the world. These things do not run on autopilot. They require each generation to cultivate them, and yes, it requires from time to time people to put on a uniform, stand up there, risk their lives, and indeed give the last full measure of devotion for service to this country. So the question for us is, are we going to preserve that sacred fire of liberty that those men and women have fought for, or are we going to squander it? The time for excuses is over. We must get the job done in 2024. I'm asking for your support in the January caucuses because I can pledge to you this: I will get the job done. I will not let you down. God bless you all. Let's win this thing. God bless the great state of Iowa. God bless these United States. Let's go on to victory. Thank you, and God bless you all.
All right. Hey, I have a question for you. What do you think of Bidenomics?
I want to lead with gratitude, which is something that we always do in North Dakota and something we always do in our family. And I want to start with gratitude for all of you being here today. Nothing is more important in our country than people being engaged in this process. In Iowa, First the Nation Caucus, the job that all of you have, you're like the board of directors. You're screening candidates for the most important job in the world. And you're here, you're paying attention, you're sitting, you're listening to everybody, you're researching, you're going online. I just want to say, It's actually incredible what you all do. It matters to this country, and so from all of us, we just say, give yourselves a hand. Thank you for being part of this incredible process. And of course, Ashley and her team, amazing work that they're doing here. What an event they have going on today, and the incredible Iowa congressional delegation. Senators Ernst, Senator Grassley, all the congressmen that you've got, they're all here today. Fantastic. Iowa is so lucky to be so well led at both at the congressional level and also at the state level. It's been my Codell, Kim Reynolds, and everybody that made this today possible. Way to go, Iowa. Good job. Fantastic. And there's someone else here. When you serve, you don't serve alone. Many of you are, I'm sure, have been in elected office, but you can't do this alone. I just want to say, so fortunate to be on this journey now today, and the journey been on the last 6 years with the First Lady of North Dakota. She's courageously told her story about her battle with addiction and her recovery, and she's here today. She's celebrating 21 years in recovery. Give it up for Catherine Burgum over here. Thank you. Two things can happen at the same time that are opposites. One is happening right here, and it's happening in every community that we go to across Iowa, New Hampshire, North Dakota. We call it the best of America. You go to communities like this, and you can find neighbors helping neighbors, like they did in my hometown. People that have little barely funded nonprofits that are doing great work to solve a problem. People standing up and running for school board. People that are getting involved in city council. This is happening all over America. And we need to just focus on the best of America. If you turn on the cable news, if you turn on social media, you never hear about the best of America. You and I, we all know it's happening every day. It's absolutely happening. But the other thing can happen at the same time. The Biden administration is not just needs a course correction. They are 180 degrees wrong on the economy, on energy, and on national security. Those three things, 100%. And I know this because I grew up in a small town, Arthur, North Dakota, 300 people. It was fantastic growing up there, little ag community. Everything we did growing up, working at the farm, working at the grain elevator, working on the ranch. Even had a job during college, working as a chimney sweep, paying my way through college. And my parents were amazing. My mom, president of the school board. My dad was a World War II Navy officer vet. When Pearl Harbor happened, he got, and like a lot of young men in that age, went down to the gym in Castleton, 15 miles away, signed up for the Navy. He had a college degree from North Dakota State. They made him a naval officer. He had never seen the ocean. I'm not sure he knew how to swim, but as fast as they could build destroyers, they put him on there, and he left Bremerton, Washington, and went off to the Pacific. Never saw my mom till after the end of the war. There was 151 destroyers at Okinawa. 129 got hit by kamikazes. It's only through the grace of God that I'm actually standing here right now. But what he did and what his generation did, we must never forget in terms of the people that are serving our country. In North Dakota, we're working hard to make sure we got the most military-friendly state in the nation, because this country doesn't work without people like my dad and like your dads and your grandpas and everybody that did that. So I want to just give it up. There are veterans in the room here. If you're a veteran, stand up. If you're a veteran, stand up. Let's give them a hand. Way to go. Thank you all. Thank you for your service. And then I was a freshman in high school, and my dad died. That was rough. I was getting on the bus to go play kindergarten basketball. They pulled me off the team bus. My mom went back to work. She was a rock. 3 kids, widow, going back to work. If you're a working mom out here, I understand what you're going through. We'll be fighting for you too, because I saw what she had to do. And my dad gave me a little piece of ground, not enough to be farming on, because in dryland wheat farming in North Dakota, you need thousands of acres. But 160 acres I got from my dad. I literally mortgaged that to start a little software company called Great Plains. We started with 10 kids, and then we built that. 18 years later, we were an overnight success story. few up and downs along the way. But we built a 2,000-person company, 1,200 of them working in Fargo, 400 rest of North America, 400 rest of the world. We had customers in 132 countries. We created so much value for our customers and our partners. We created $1 billion company out of those kids in North Dakota. We did that. And when someone tells me that you can't be from a small town and run for president, it's just like jumping on my start button, because absolutely, D.C. needs more small town values. They need more understanding of what's going on in America in small towns. And in 2016, we decided to jump in. There was an open race for governor, and we ran, and we were down 59 points in the polls. I promised Catherine, she was like, I'm not sure I want to be a first lady of anything, and I'm like, hey, I get that, but don't worry, we're not going to win. Not going to happen. We only have 5 months till the primary, and then, we won the primary 60-40, and then we won the general by more than 40 points. We got reelected in 2020 by over 40 points, highest margin of any gubernatorial race in the country. How did we do that? When we go to work, we know that we work for everybody. When there's a blizzard in North Dakota, we're plowing the roads for the independents, the Democrats, the Republicans. We're doing it for everybody. The services that we deliver, and just not efficient. We took $1.7 billion out of a $6 billion budget our first 4 months in office, and every train still ran on time. You can do that. Technology is changing every job, every company, and every industry. It has not changed government. There's a huge opportunity to take 10 to 20% of the cost out of the federal government. I know how to do that. I've done it before, because the business that I was in, we always had to get better, faster, cheaper the next day. But on energy, let me start with the economy. One thing on the economy, what do we have right now? We have the highest interest rates in 22 years. We got a debt, is completely out of control at the federal government. We got budget, the budget's upside down, trade deficit. I mean, you can't find one economic thing. And the Biden administration tries to tell all of us, don't worry, inflation is going down. That's code word for prices are increasing not as fast as they were yesterday. That's like, feel good about your 10% pay cut last year because you're only getting a 5% pay cut this year. That's Bidenomics. Okay, but what we know, the prices for all of you are up 17 to 30% more than 2 years ago, and we know that incomes haven't risen that fast. We're all worse off than we were 2 years ago, and we can fix that. We can absolutely fix that, and one way we fix that is by cutting red tape. The federal government creates so much burden. I've seen it as a small entrepreneur and a small business owner. I've seen it running large global business, and now I've seen it in every day as governor, where the federal government is trying to Bigfoot the states. And by the way, the states created the federal government, not the other way around. In the Constitution, yes, in the Constitution, there is a limited number of things that the federal government is supposed to do. The rest is reserved for the states, or for the people, Some of the stuff parents can decide. We don't need a state law. We definitely don't need a federal law. We get it back to the power to the people. We can reduce the size of the federal government, get it back in the lane, but the federal government does have responsibility around the economy and around energy policy and around national security. And national security includes border security. And right now, Biden is complete dereliction of duty on the southern border. This last year, 110,000 overdose deaths in our country, 107,000 the year before. That's a statistic that's hard to get your head around. But understand what that means. That's 300 Americans a day are dying. 70% of those are fentanyl poisonings, not an accidental overdose, poisonings. That's coming from China. We're taking mass casualties because of our open border. We absolutely are, and we have got to stop that. North Dakota, like other states, has been sending troops down there. We've got two different deployments going down. I'm going down there tomorrow to see the group that's been there for 9 months and another group that just got there. And I will tell you, take whatever number the Biden gives you on crossings and triple it, because they're not reporting the full number that's happening down there. So the Biden took them 2 years to get down to the border. I'll be down there in 2 weeks after I'm president. We will get that problem solved. And in closing out on the energy, the one thing you need to know is we're going to start selling energy to our friends and allies on day one, stop buying it from our adversaries. The Biden energy policy, I think, was created by China. Why do I say that? Because they want to take liquid fuels. There's an attack on biofuels, ethanol, oil and gas in this country. Just this week, they buried a news lead that's essentially a war on pickups, because they're saying they want to phase out internal combustion machines by 2032, including pickups. I don't know how that's going to work in the world that we're living in up here, but they want to do that because they want to go all EV. And they want to have everything electric, and they want to subsidize 500,000 charging stations. They want to subsidize the cars, and the batteries all come from China, and China produces 85% of the rare earth minerals. And so we literally would be trading our future to China. We can't do that. And so I will tell you, energy policy, economics, national security, they're all interrelated. I understand all three of these. We'll get them fixed. We'll get this country on the right track. We're going to be campaigning throughout Iowa all the way through the fall to January. We're going to be there. We hope that you're with us there in January. Thank you so much. Let's get some small-town common sense back in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.
Okay. We have 162 days until the Iowa caucuses, until January 15th. So mark your calendars, 162 days. All right, our next speaker, I was pleased to meet at the Faith and Freedom Dinner earlier this year, and my son Max actually had the opportunity to have a pretty good discussion with this man about economics and the future of our country. And I think I can say fairly that Max was a fan. He is fighting to keep the American dream alive for the next generation, so please welcome Perry Johnson to the stage.
It's a Springsteen song, it's a ride and a
Well, good afternoon. It's almost evening. But I am Perry Johnson, and I am running for President of the United States. But I will let you know that I am probably too conservative for this group, and you can string me up when I leave. But I am pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, anti-woke, anti-China, and even though many people don't agree with me, I think it's ridiculous that we're sending $113 billion over to the Ukraine when we're going broke here. When I am elected president, there are several things that I will do immediately. Number one, I will start finishing the wall. Let's face it, it is costing us $150.7 billion a year because of illegal immigrants, and we have more illegal immigrants in this country for the first time in history than legal immigrants. And I say that is ridiculous. Not only does it cost us so much money, we are poisoning our kids, poisoning our culture, and killing our kids with the fentanyl. I say we stop it. Number two, never again will we allow a minor to ruin their lives by having transition therapy. It'll never happen again. And number three, and I know many don't like this, I am going to shut down the Department of Education. I want everyone to realize that literally only 8 cents out of every dollar is going to grades K through 12. And that is a sin. I say we just get rid of all but 10 people, get rid of 4,390 people, and ship that money directly to the parents and let them send them to the schools that their choice. Now, the fourth thing is that I am going to shut down the FBI. We're dismantling it. The reason I say that is that we have too much corruption that's been going on for literally 45 to 50 years. I say we end it. The Department of Justice, that has to be dismantled because we have corruption there too. And I say, let's end the corruption. But as many of you may know, I called on starting impeachment proceedings for Joe Biden. Now, we do have Hunter Biden, and he made $1.4 million out on his paintings. He started painting, I guess, at the age of 50, and let's face it, he is the next Picasso. We know that roughly $10 million went to the Biden family with this myriad of corporations. And they have all these corporations strung together, stealing that money, bribing, who knows what it is. But I say, let's investigate it. This is nuts. Now, the reason I called on pardoning Trump on March 21st and was the first candidate to do so is that I think that it's unfair that we start picking on our candidates and letting the Democrats decide who should be running. This is not right. And I'm running against him, and I'm telling you this. I'm telling you right now, this is not right. Now, you can't ever vote for anyone without knowing something about them, so I'm going to tell you a little about myself. I was born in a small town, Dalton, Illinois. Had a wonderful childhood. My dad was a pilot in World War II. My mom was a nurse in the Army WACs. And they met at a New Year's Eve party. The biggest break of my life. And they love this country. You know, when I went to college, my parents didn't have the money, but I worked in the steel mill and I got through. And then in grad school, well, I was getting eviction notices on pretty much a regular basis. I did do something in order to survive. I used to go to Vegas and I would play blackjack, but they finally kicked me out. And I couldn't play blackjack anymore because I'm a card counter. My background is mathematics. And I started a situation where I had a major break because I got a job in the auto industry with Borg Warner. This was in the 1980s when the auto industry was in trouble. The Japanese had come in with tremendous quality and they were killing us. But I thought I knew how to solve the problem. And what I did was to introduce statistical process control. And I introduced statistical methods. And the Japanese had come in with tremendous quality because we had this huge operation at the end of the line where people would inspect the product, and if it wasn't any good, they would throw it out or rework it. And I knew that was never going to work. So I started in the beginning of the operation, and we ironed out the variation. In 4 or 5 years, we had the best quality in the world. And then I said to myself, why not a standard for quality? And I wrote a book, ISO 9000, the quality standard. It took off like hotcakes. And they translated it into Japanese, Spanish, even Hungarian, and now Perry Johnson Registrar and Perry Johnson Laboratory Accreditation do business in 61 countries around the world. And I live the American dream. Now, I have the most perfect life in the world. I have the most wonderful wife in the world. In fact, she's right here. She's going to critique my speech. I have 3 wonderful sons, and my oldest son is here. He started Michigan State this year. And I have spent my entire life bringing quality and efficiency to companies, and now I want to bring it to the federal government. And I'm going to ask you, do you think the federal government has quality and efficiency now? Now, they never wanted me, and I want you to notice they have done everything to try to get me out of the debate, but I now have 43,000 donations. And by the way, I'm an efficiency expert. So when you check, except for Trump and DeSantis, I believe you'll find that I spent less money for those donations than anyone because I got them by talking to people in person, and these are in-person donations for the most part, and mail donations. And I'm going to wait. I'm going to have 50,000. I just need to make sure they include me in the polls. The polling system, the RNC, you know, let's face it, it's a nutty organization. And I want to make sure that they're not corrupt too. So I want them to include all candidates. I know they're going to include me in the polling now because I have 40,000, but I want them to include all these candidates. What do you say we do that? Now my plan, I wrote a book on the plan on what to do, and my plan's very simple. 2 cents to save America. Every year the government spends every penny in their budget. They go out of their way to make sure they are broke every year. And I say we do just the opposite. We freeze that budget, and we cut 2 cents out of every dollar of discretionary spending. And you know what? We'll suddenly start balancing the budget. Right now, we are almost $33 trillion in debt. That's 130% of gross domestic product, and each one of your families is spending $610 a month just on the interest of our debt. $610. Now, I've invented a lot of things in this race that have never happened before. Anyone here that wants to go to the Big and Rich concert in Iowa, you're invited. All my donors are going to go to Big and Rich in Iowa on the 12th. And it's free to you. I'm going to tell you something, that I love this country and I love it more than life itself. I want you to realize what a spectacularly amazing country we really have. You know, we had people founded this country because they believed in freedom. And isn't freedom what we really want? Let's say yes to freedom. Yes to freedom. And they came over because they wanted religious freedom. And then they had this idea. The idea that they would have a country unlike any country in the history of the world. A country by the people, for the people. A country that had 3 basic principles, inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And with that freedom and that idea, we founded something that became a miracle. And that experiment has shown that we became the most upwardly mobile society in the history of all humanity. We became a phenomenal country. A country where the world looks at us and says, wow! Because by golly, we have done the impossible. And I want you to think about the history of this country. Whether we have the Carnegies, we have the Fords, we have the Mellons, and we even have the Elon Musk. And I tell you right now, when the world looks at us, they say, wow, we are amazing. And let us be the greatest country the world has ever known, and let's keep it that way. What do you say? God bless America, and God bless the United States of America in every way. Let's let Iowa continue to be number 1. Let's do it. Let us do it now. No, no, yes. Oh, I almost fell off. Great. Enjoy life.
Okay, so that's some energy, right? Feel it, yeah. All right, does everybody need to stand up and do like a 7th inning stretch or something? Let's all stand up. Okay, just for a minute. Let's everybody clap our hands up here. Are we excited for our next speaker? Yes. Okay. So our next speaker here today is not afraid to shake things up and speak the truth. And I don't know about you, but I think the swamp could use a good shake-up, don't you? Absolutely. Please welcome our next speaker, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Springsteen song, it's a ride in a Chevrolet. It's a man on the moon and fireflies in June and kids selling lemonade. It's cities and farms, it's open arms, one nation under God. It's America.
Good to be back, and this time I'm back with my lovely wife Apurva and our 2 sons who are backstage. Welcome them here as well. It's good to be here as a family. It's a family adventure. I'll tell you my story. My parents came to this country 40 years ago with no money. I've gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies. I did it while marrying my lovely wife, Apurva, raising our 2 sons, following our faith in God. That is the American dream. That is the dream that defines this country. But I am worried. that American dream will not exist for my two sons and their generation. We are now in the middle of a national identity crisis, and I'm speaking to you as a member of my generation when I say this. I am 37 years old. I was born in 1985. I'm the youngest person ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll tell you what's going on with us young people. You want to know what's going on? Here's what it is. We are hungry for a cause. We are so starved for purpose and meaning and identity at a time in our national history when the things that used to fill that hunger, faith, patriotism, hard work, family, these things have disappeared. And that leaves a black hole, a moral vacuum in its wake. And when you have a black hole that runs that deep, that is when the poison fills the void. Wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, COVIDism, globalism, depression, anxiety, fentanyl, suicide. These are symptoms of a deeper void of purpose and meaning in our country. And as odd as that might sound, this is actually our opportunity as conservatives to now level up and say that for a long time we have been running from something. But now is our moment to start running to something, to fill that void with our vision of what it means to be an American today. That is our job. That is what rests ahead. The left will say race, gender, sexuality, climate. I want us talking more about the value of the individual, the family, the nation, and yes, God. Individual, family, nation, God, that beats race, gender, sexuality, and climate. I want us talking about what it means to be a citizen of this country. What does it mean to be an American? It means we believe in the ideals of the American Revolution. Ideals like meritocracy and the pursuit of excellence. That you get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and your contributions. That is why we will end affirmative action in America. It has been a cancer on our national soul. We are done with it. What does it mean to be an American? It means we believe in the rule of law. And I say this as the kid of legal immigrants. That means your first act of entering this country cannot break the law. We will use the U.S. military to close that Swiss cheese of a southern border. That is what it means to stand for the rule of law in this country. Thank you. What does it mean to be an American? It means we believe in a radical dream that our founding fathers had. A radical dream that I have as a citizen, that the people who we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government, not the deep state that actually runs the show today. So I've said that, look, if I can't be your U.S. president for more than 8 years and collect a paycheck from the taxpayer for more than 8 years, which I think is a good thing, then neither should any of those federal bureaucrats either. Replace the civil service protections with term limits for the bureaucracy. All right, that's how we revive a constitutional republic. When there are government agencies that should not exist, that have become so corrupted that they have lost their original purpose, from the FBI to the ATF, to the IRS, to the CDC, to the U.S. Department of Education. We will not just reform those agencies, no. We will get in there and we will shut them down. That is how we revive our constitutional republic in the United States of America. See, You're hearing from a lot of my friends today, and I really don't view the other people running as competitors. They are my colleagues. They are our colleagues. I will depend on them to each play their role in this national revival. I don't want to bash them. These are our friends. Just like I'm going to depend on each of you, we each have to play our part. There is a choice we face, however, and it's going to be the choice we face next year, even in our own primary. There are good people who will tell you we have to work within the institutions we have. Incremental reform is our hope. Well, here's the choice we face. Do you want incremental reform, or do you want revolution? I stand on the side of the American Revolution, those 1776 ideals that set this country into motion, that radical dream that we the people create a government that is accountable to us, not the other way around, that we sort out our differences through free speech and open debate in the public square where every person's voice and vote counts equally, not in the back of palace halls in old world Europe, not in the back of a palace hall in BlackRock's corner office today. We the people have a voice in our republic, and we depend and we require a government that finally tells us the truth again. Trust is a two-way relationship. The reason the people do not trust the government is that the government does not trust the people. They think we can't handle the truth about COVID-19, that we can't handle the truth about where the virus came from, that we can't handle the truth about vaccine mandates or lockdowns, or about a Hunter Biden corruption story, or about the Nashville shooter manifesto, or about January 6th. Our government believes that we the people can't handle the truth. It is our job as the citizens of this country to speak back and say, we the people, we can handle the truth. We the people, we demand to hear the truth. That is what begins in November of 2024. You see, for me, November 2024, that is not the finish line of a campaign. It is the start line of a national revival. That is where this begins. Where I don't think about my inauguration speech. I think about my farewell speech in January of 2033. When my older son, he'll be in junior high school. Okay? And all joking aside, that means something to me. We are creating a country for him. I used to say it at the start of this campaign, the country that I grew up in. I don't say it that way anymore. A country greater than the one that I grew up in. That is what I believe is possible. When I leave that office in January 2033, I want to tell you just a few things that we did. One is that we shut down that deep state, so once again we have 3 branches of government, not 4. I want to tell you that we declared independence from our enemy, communist China, who we no longer depend on for our modern way of life. I want to tell you that our economy is growing at the fastest rate in the developed world because we embrace capitalism instead of apologizing for it. I want to tell you that most importantly, my 2 sons and their generation, they are once again proud to be citizens of this nation. And the way we're going to revive that national pride is by standing up once again in this country for the truth. That is what we are doing in this campaign. We stand up and we speak the truth. We speak the truth in the face of hardship. We speak the truth not when it is easy, but when it is hard. Hardship is something that happens to you. Victimhood is a choice. We don't choose to be victims. We choose to be victorious. We are victorious when we speak the truth. So that is what we're going to do today. Let us stand up and speak that truth. God is real. There are 2 genders. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Reverse racism is racism. An open border is not a border. parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family is the best known form of governance to mankind. Capitalism is the best system known to man to lift people up from poverty. There are 3 branches of government, not 4, and our U.S. Constitution is the strongest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is the truth. We stand up for the truth. We fight for the truth. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what will win us the revolution of 2024. Thank you all, Iowa. It's good to be back. God bless you. God bless your families. And may God bless our great nation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we have 3 more fabulous speakers tonight. Our next speaker, I think, is going to keep you fired up. And I think most of you know I was obviously born and raised in central Iowa. I decided to go out to Southern California to get my college degree. And I can tell you, being a conservative on a college campus in Los Angeles, it makes you pretty hardy. I can tell you that. But I had some backup. Every single day I got to listen to the Larry Elder Show on the radio, right? So it's my pleasure now to introduce you to a man who has lived the American dream. He can tell that story. He has lived it. And it's a pleasure to have him join us on the stage. Please welcome Larry Elder.
It's a Springsteen song, it's a ride in a Chevrolet. It's a man on the moon and fireflies in June and kids selling lemonade. In cities and farms, it's open arms. One nation.
Oh my goodness. Say hello to the black face of white supremacy. Before I get started, I want to say a few things about my home state of California. As you know, I ran for governor. I just heard that Governor Gavin Newsom has agreed to debate Ron DeSantis. Wouldn't it have been nice if somebody had pressured him to debate me during the recall election when it mattered? Now, I got a book coming out the first week of September. It's called As Goes California, My Mission to Rescue the Golden State and Save the Nation. My goals are modest. And in the book, I propose a 2-step plan to save California. Step number 1, keep the illegal aliens. Step number 2, deport the Democrats. I had an epiphany when I was campaigning. I've always been opposed to term limits. But now I'm in favor of term limits for voters. Once you vote Democrat 2 or 3 times in a row, you lose your right to vote. What do you think? Not too surprisingly, I haven't gotten a lot of traction with that one. I'm running because there are some issues that our side does not talk enough about. This lie the Democrats have been pushing and pushing and pushing that America remains systemically racist. It's not just pushing nonsense like reparations, which is the extraction of money from people who were never slave owners to be given to people who were never slaves. It's not only pushing stuff like race-based preferences, which is causing a mismatch of college students, so the ones that are supposedly benefiting end up dropping out at a higher rate, and also shafting another minority group known as Asian Americans. It's also pushing stuff like diversity, equity, inclusion, which is the opposite of what MLK wanted. He wanted a colorblind society, not a color-coordinated society. But worse is getting people killed. It's called the Ferguson effect or the George Floyd effect, and that is a phenomenon of cops all over America pulling back from doing their normal proactive policing. So in the last several years, in cities all around the country, there were thousands of people who've been victimized by violent crime and who are dead, who otherwise would not have suffered if the police had been doing their normal proactive policing. And these, call them excess casualties, are primarily black and brown people that people on the left purport to care about. It is getting people killed. Then there is this 10,000-pound elephant in the room that our side does not talk enough about, if at all, and that is the number one social problem facing this country, far and away, is the epidemic of fatherlessness. Far and away. 40% of American kids enter the world today without a father in the home married to the mother, up threefold from 1965. In 1965, 25% of black kids entered the world without a father in the home married to the mother. Now that number is a little bit under 70%. Now 25% of white kids enter the world without a father in the home married to the mother. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama once quoted them. A kid raised without a father is 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. What happened in the mid-'60s when Democrat Lyndon Johnson launched the so-called war on poverty? We've incentivized women to marry the government, and we've incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. They don't talk about it because they caused it. Our side doesn't talk about it because if you are white, you're called systemically racist, and if you're black, you're called the black face of white supremacy. And this is not to denigrate the hard job that single moms and sometimes grandparents have done, but it is certainly much, much harder to do. These kids need mentors. They need a male figure in their lives. I was just in Johnston, Iowa. I was talking to the police chief. And I said, "You guys have a gang problem?" He said, "Yeah, we do. Not like Chicago, we have a problem." I said, "What's the commonality?" He said, "These kids do not have a male father figure in their life. It can be a father, it can be a grandfather, it can be a coach, it can be a pastor. It's got to be somebody. These kids have nothing." My generation, the baby boom generation, is retiring or will soon retire. Many of us are vigorous. They've raised children, they've raised grandchildren. They have time on their hands. They need to get involved. They need to be mentors. They need to get involved either with money or with their time. They need to be mentors. Every one of these kids, I liken it to Alcoholics Anonymous, where if you're a recovering alcoholic, you have a sponsor, somebody you can call on when you feel a moment of need, of counseling, of weakness. All these kids need to have some male figure in their life that they can call on. And as a president, I'll be using the bully pulpit to recommend that we do this. And the money that's being spent, thank you. And the money that is being spent on social programs at the federal level is being misspent. The programs are inefficient. That money, taxpayers should be able to direct it to organizations in their own communities, most notably churches, nonprofits that are doing this kind of mentoring, where they'll get far, far more successful results. Then there is this disaster known as K through 12 urban education. You guys have choice here in Iowa. There are 13 public high schools in Baltimore, just to choose one city. 13 public high schools in Baltimore, all located in the inner city, where 0% of the kids can do math at grade level. I kid you not. Another half a dozen where only 1% can. That's half of all the public high schools in the city of Baltimore where either 0% or only 1% of the kids can do math at grade level. Chicago, 53 government schools. That's a term I prefer, government school. 0% of the kids can do math at grade level. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party opposes school choice, which studies have shown improved test scores, improved graduation rates. Meanwhile, their elites, whether Barack Obama, Gavin Newsom, Joe Biden, they have their own kids in private school. It is an absolute outrage. The money should follow the child rather than the other way around. My father was born in Athens, Georgia. My mom was born in Huntsville, Alabama. We're talking about Jim Crow South. My father never met his biological father. My last name, Elder, was the name of some man who was in his life the longest. My dad came home at the age of 13. Elder was long gone. He began quarreling with his mom's then boyfriend. She sides with the boyfriend and throws my father out of the house, never to return. 13-year-old black boy, 8th grade dropout at the beginning of the Great Depression. My dad picked up trash. Ultimately, he got a job as a Pullman porter. Came out to this place called California, and he was stunned. You could walk into the front door of a restaurant and get served. My dad always had packages of crackers and tin cans of tuna because you never knew in the South if you'd be able to get a meal. So he made a mental note, maybe someday I'll relocate to California. Pearl Harbor, my dad joined the Marines. He was a Montford Point Marine. They were the first black Marines. My dad was a staff sergeant in charge of cooking for the colored soldiers. War is over, goes back to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where he met and married my mom to get him a job as a cook, and he was told, "We don't hire niggers." Told my mom, "This is nonsense. I'm going to L.A., where I was before the war, get me a job as a cook." He walks around and he's told, you don't have any references. My dad said, I need references to make ham and eggs? They treated him the same way in L.A. as they did in Chattanooga. My dad went to the unemployment office, took the first thing that he had. My dad worked at Nabisco brand bread for over 10 years cleaning toilets, took a second full-time job at another bread company cleaning toilets, cooked for a family on the weekend because he wanted my mom to be a stay-at-home mom, went to night school to get his GED. When he finished that, went to night school to learn how to operate a small restaurant. At the age of 47, my dad had saved his nickels and dimes, starts a small restaurant near downtown LA, runs it until his mid-80s. When my dad retired, he owned the restaurant, the property next door, plus the home that's still in our family. Not too shabby for an 8th grade dropout, Athens, Georgia, who can tell you a little something about systemic racism. It is a lie that the Democrats do to drive that 90% black vote. They don't want black people thinking about schools or crime or jobs. They want black people to be thinking about social justice or equity, whatever that means. I mentioned my dad was a World War II Marine vet. My older brother Kirk, my late older brother Kirk, was in the Navy, served in the 6th Fleet during the Vietnam-era war. My little brother Dennis actually went to Vietnam. I'm the only one in my family who didn't serve. My mom even worked for the War Department as a clerk typist. I've never felt good about that. This is my opportunity to give back to my country and give back to a country that's been so good to me and to my family, and that is why I'm doing this. I'm urging you all, please, I need 40,000 individual donors to qualify for that first debate. On the 23rd of this month, you can donate as little as $1. Just go to my website, larryelder.com. That's larryelder.com. And when I get up there in that debate stage and I talk about the epidemic of fatherlessness, the lie that America is systemically racist, the need for school choice, the need for an amendment to the Constitution to fix spending to a certain percentage of the GDP, otherwise government's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We just had our credit rating downgraded. We are borrowing $5 billion a day to run this country. And we need to do something about all these issues. So once I get up there and I talk about these issues, hold my beer, game on. God bless you, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you so much. Hoorah!
Okay. Are we still ready to fire Joe Biden? Yes, we are. Okay, our next speaker hails from the great state of Arkansas. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Governor Asa Hutchinson to the stage as he shares his vision to help us fire Joe Biden in 2024. Governor.
It's a Springsteen song, it's a ride in a Chevrolet. It's a man on the moon and fireflies in June and kids.
You are terrific. Let me tell you, it is great to be back in Iowa. This is my 14th trip here, and every one of them I'm getting an incredibly nice response from Iowa. Notice I said nice. And I want to thank Congresswoman Ashley Hinson. What a great job she's doing putting this on together. Thank you. And then also wanted to recognize Governor Kim Reynolds and the legislators that are here today. You all have done an incredible job of getting the heartbeat bill passed through the Iowa General Assembly. I'm a pro-life governor. I signed over 30 pro-life bills while I was governor of Arkansas. And I will be a pro-life president of the United States. Now, I said I'm getting a great response here, and I just want you to know, I know that this is an uphill battle because there's one candidate in the race that's got like 50% of the vote. So I recognize there's an uphill road. In fact, I went in, of course, I come from a small state. I didn't have a national profile. I did my work 8 years as governor. But I went into a restaurant here in Iowa and shaking hands, and I came across this lady, and I said, hey, I'm Asa Hutchinson. I'm running for President of the United States. And she responded with great sarcasm, sure, and I'm running for Vice President of the United States. And so I understand what's ahead and what we're fighting for. I'm not a self-funded candidate. You know, I look at my life. I started Bentonville's first FM radio station. My mom and dad had a high school education. We grew up on the farm. And let me tell you, growing up on the farm, you learn some amazing values in life. You learn about the sense of community. You learn about faith in God because farmers know you're not in control. You learn about helping your neighbors. You learn about hard work and responsibility. I learned about cleaning out chicken houses. I learned about breaking the ice when the cattle needed to have water. And growing up in that environment and through education, having the opportunity to go to college, Bob Jones University, to go to law school, this has been an amazing opportunity that I've had in life. And you look at why I'm running for President of the United States, and I'll tell you very simply, because of Biden's failed policies. He has failed us on our border security. He's failed us on our energy policy, where he's produced less versus more. He tried to go all green rather than all in with energy supply. Whenever you look at his spending, he has wasted the federal government in spending programs that gave us high inflation and gave us high interest rates. And as a farmer, you know that means a higher cost for your machinery. It means the fertilizer cost is going up and your revenue is staying the same. And so this economy is not working for us in Iowa, and I understand that. I look at his failed policy and the way he came out of Afghanistan. I look at the fact that he has weakened us on the international stage. So I'm running for president because I want a pro-growth energy policy in the country. I want to be able to support our values of life. I want to make sure that we control federal spending. These are important to us. But another area that President Biden has failed us is that he has diminished respect for the rule of law in our country. And the fact is that there is less trust about our criminal justice system today than there was yesterday, before his administration. And it means something to me because the rule of law has meant something all through my life. I was a young United States attorney, appointed by President Reagan, the youngest in the nation. And I had to confront a terrorist group in the hills of northern Arkansas. They were armed. It was an armed encampment. They had committed murders and violent acts. We had SWAT teams from 5 different states. They refused to surrender. The FBI asked me to help negotiate the surrender. I assisted in that. They surrendered after 3 days. I prosecuted them in court on racketeering charges. I understand the rule of law and the importance of it. I appreciate those in law enforcement and how they've served our country. You fast forward, when I go to the Congress of the United States, I was asked to be an impeachment manager against President Bill Clinton. And I took on that responsibility when I first said, no, I don't want to do that, because he was the president for my home state. And I said, I can't get reelected if I do that. And then I thought about my oath to the Constitution of the United States of America. And I said, I will take that responsibility. I prosecuted him for obstruction of justice because I believed in the rule of law. President Bush asked me to head up the DEA because I believe in the rule of law and our justice system. And I worked with President Vicente Fox in Mexico to go after the cartels successfully at that time. And I understood the challenge of methamphetamine in our communities. And then 9/11 attack occurred in our country. And I was asked again to go over set up the largest government reorganization since the Pentagon was created. And I knew that we need to enforce the law and use the law to protect our country from terrorist activities. I've met challenges in our country. As governor, we had protests all across the country after the George Floyd murder. And whenever we had those protests, many of them turned violent. In Little Rock, Arkansas, there was no exception. I saw violence in the street, buildings being burned, the Capitol being threatened, and I said, enough is enough. And so I took the state police and I took the National Guard, and I said, we're going to enforce the law. And whenever we did that, we arrested people, 70 people that night, and guess what happened? The violence stopped. There is some simple principles in life. When you look at border security, enforce the law. Whenever you look in violence in our cities today, enforce the law. And I bring that perspective. And the only candidate that's been both a governor, a United States attorney, a head of the DEA, that experience on national security issues. And what I'm leading to is that we need to have a pro-growth energy policy in this country. We need to have improved border security. We need to make sure we're respected abroad, but we also need to elevate the rule of law in this country, and the Republican Party supports law enforcement, supports the rule of law, and yes, there's challenges in it that we have to correct. And so I have proposed a reform of federal law enforcement. I announced at the National Press Club in which we would pull the jurisdiction of the FBI away from drugs and give it to the DEA. We would shrink their responsibilities, hold them accountable. We would make sure it was transparent and Congress had oversight of the FBI. We would bring them within the Department of Justice so they're not operating their own. And yes, I would get a new Attorney General that would enforce the rule of law in a way that's fair for our country. These are my reform proposals. And so I just wanted to emphasize today from my heart that we are a party that believes in our justice system, but we want it to work fairly and we want it to work rightly for the people of our country. And I will do the reform that is needed to accomplish that. Finally, you know, I look at America and I have great hope for our country. I'm an optimist about this beautiful land that we have. And if you want hope and optimism about America, let me tell you where you should go. Iowa. When you look at Iowa, you love America, you understand sacrifice, you understand the common good, you understand helping your neighbor. And I remember Iowa businesses that sent resources to New York City after 9/11 because you had what they needed. You pray, you have faith in God, and let me tell you, you give us hope for America. I'm running for president because I can bring change. I have the experience that is needed to address the challenges that we face, and I know that America has its greatest days ahead. Now, this last week, believe it or not, because I'm so young, I know you don't believe this, but my wife and I, Susan, and I celebrated our 50th anniversaries on August 4th. And I felt bad because I was not with her. And she said, Asa, don't come home until you get 40,000 donors and you can get on the debate stage. So go to asa24.com, give us $1, get on the debate stage, and I'll get to go home to my bride. Thank you all, and God bless you.
All right, are we ready for our final speaker of the day? Woo, you guys have stuck with us. By the way, we have set a new record for attendance this year. We have 800 Iowans, freedom-loving patriots in the room tonight. 800, thank you so much. Okay, our final speaker tonight has been a governor. She's been an ambassador. She has taken on world dictators. She has taken on the liberal media, and she does it with style, wearing heels to kick a little butt. So our final speaker tonight, Ambassador Nikki Haley.
School prom, it's a Springsteen song, it's a ride in a Chevrolet.
Looking crowd. It's great to be back here in Iowa. I will tell you, I left South Carolina and it was hot, and everybody's saying, oh, you're coming to the Iowa State Fair. You know it's going to be hot. And I'm always like, you know I'm from South Carolina, right? But we don't sweat there, we glisten. So I'm not going to go into too much about me. I think you guys know I was born and raised in rural South Carolina, went to a public university, Clemson University, go Tigers, graduated with a degree in accounting. I'm not a lawyer, I'm an accountant. And went on and served 2 terms as governor of South Carolina, took a double-digit unemployment state, turned it into an economic powerhouse. And then I went to the United Nations, and I took the kick me sign off of our backs, and we were respected again at the UN. And you know, one of the things that happened at the UN, when we moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, the world condemned us. And I was proud to issue the U.S. veto. But I was so angry, I went back to my staff and I said, I want you to put a book together. I want you to list all 193 countries. I want the second column to be how many times they voted with the U.S. and against the U.S. And I want the third column to be how much foreign aid we give them. I took that book and I gave it to President Trump. He lost his mind. He's flipping pages, he's yelling out countries. And I said, look, I'm not saying you give foreign aid based on a percentage vote at the UN, but that should be one of the things we look at. Quit trying to buy friends. Quit paying off enemies. You know, America gave $50 billion in foreign aid last year. Do you know who they gave it to? Pakistan, that harbored terrorists that tried to kill our soldiers. Iraq, that has Iranian influence. Belarus, who's holding hands with Russia as they invade Ukraine. Communist Cuba, who we named a state sponsor of terrorism and who's putting up a spy center off our coast. And the one that makes me sick to my stomach, we gave money to China. How weak do we look? When I am president, we will no longer give money to countries that hate America. That's a promise. You know, Iowa's an important state. Not because of the caucuses, that's an important thing, but for our national security. Food security is national security. Energy independence is national security. You supply us with our food, you supply us with ethanol. But now I want to talk to you. We've got lots of issues, from debt to crime to a lawless border, lack of transparency in education. We've got that. You know all the answers with that. We can go through that. But what I want to talk to you today about is national security. Because right now, if you look at what we're facing, we've got national threats from all around. You can look at it. You've got Iran building a bomb. You've got North Korea testing ballistic missiles. You've got China on the march, right? You've got Russia invading Ukraine. But make no mistake, none of that would have happened had we not had that debacle in Afghanistan. My husband is a combat veteran. He deployed to Afghanistan. The idea that he and his military brothers and sisters had to watch the U.S. leave Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night without telling our allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with us for decades because we asked them to be there. Think about what that told our friends. More importantly, think about what that told our enemies. But now I want you to think about the biggest national security threat that we face, and that's China. And not enough people are talking about it. China has been planning war with the United States for years. That's not over-dramatizing. This is the biggest threat we've had since Pearl Harbor. Don't take my word for it. Let's look at what they've done. Look at the infiltration they have done in America. They have bought 400,000 acres of U.S. soil, most recently near Grand Forks Air Force Base, where our most sensitive drone technology is. They are giving millions of dollars to our universities so that they can steal research and spread Chinese propaganda. They have sent enough fentanyl last year that would kill every single American, 75,000 Americans last year. We've had more people die of fentanyl than the Iraq, Afghanistan, and Vietnam wars combined. Don't think for a second China doesn't know what they're doing. Then you look at the fact that they have their Chinese front companies lobbying our members of Congress on behalf of the Communist Chinese Party. We now know that they have malware embedded in our systems, our network systems, our infrastructure systems, our communication systems, our power grid. And we're trying to find out where the code is. But if they have that code, that means they could disable us, especially when it's near our military installations or when it's just the general public. Then you go and you look at the fact they steal $600 billion worth of intellectual property from us every year. We open a new Chinese investigation on spying every 12 hours in this country. Every 12 hours. And then you look at what they're doing with their military. They've built up their military. They have the largest naval fleet in the world. They have 350 ships. They'll have 400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have 350 ships in 2 decades. Their military is 2 million strong. Ours is 1.4, and our recruitment is 25% down. They are building up hypersonic missiles. We've barely gotten started. They're doing artificial intelligence. They're doing cyber. They're doing space. They are now the biggest developer of neurostrike weapons. Neurostrike weapons disrupt brain activity so that they can use it against military commanders, or they can use it against groups of the population. Think about all of those things. And what are we doing? Totally distracted. We're talking about a bunch of other things that don't even matter. Because you know what? All of these issues are big issues. But if we don't have national security, none of it matters. What should we be doing? We need to take China head on. The way you do that is you say China will no longer buy any American soil whatsoever. And we don't stop there. We take back the U.S. soil they have already purchased. That's a problem for our farmers. And you know, they bought the #1 pork producer in the country that's right here in Iowa, right? That's food insecurity. Then we'll go to our universities. We say you either take Chinese money or you take American money, but the days of taking both are over. We will get that Chinese infiltration out of our universities. We won't just stop the Chinese Communist Party. We will stop all foreign lobbying, period, to any of our members of Congress. We will get that out. And we will make sure that China knows we will stop all normal trade relations with China if they don't stop killing Americans. There's a list of cyber technologies that we don't want China to have because it builds up their military and it threatens America. The Biden administration approved 70% of those requests last year. We will turn that list into a blacklist, and we will stop sending any technologies to China that could hurt America. And we will build up our military. A strong military doesn't start wars. A strong military prevents wars. We will make sure they're strong. We'll pull down the bureaucracy. We'll pull down the red tape. We'll stop favoritism with defense projects. And we will make sure our military are strong and ready and protected. You know, several weeks back, I dropped my husband off for another year-long deployment. I dropped them off at 4 a.m., and I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to load a bus to go to a country they'd never been, all in the name of defending and protecting America. They're willing to sacrifice their lives and their families because they still believe in this amazing experiment that is America. So if they're willing to fight for us there, shouldn't we be willing to fight for America here? We have a country to save. And in order to save our country, that means we have got to stop all the distractions. We've got to leave the negativity behind. We've got to start looking at these new problems with big solutions. And we need to understand that we have to focus on everything from debt to crime to a lawless border to our national security. But if we do this, if we go back to our national purpose, we can get back to a place of strength. Because right now, you look at our biggest enemy and what's happening. You're inviting them to the dinner table. You're inviting them into our home. You're inviting them to compete with us. That's not what you do with an enemy. You stomp an enemy out. We can do that. But we have to stop all this craziness like gender pronouns in the military. Someone asked me why I was running, and I said my parents came here 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunities. I want them to know that country again. I'm doing this for my husband, Michael, and his military brothers and sisters. They need to know their sacrifice means something, that we do love our country. I'm doing this for my daughter, because she just got married and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. And I'm doing this for my son because I have watched how he has been nervous to write papers of things he doesn't believe in because that's the only way he's going to get an A. That's wrong. That's not us. That's not America. For the first time in our country, 78% of Americans don't think their kids are going to live as good of a life as we did. We can't be okay with that. I'm not okay with that. But what I will tell you is if you will join me, not only will we take back our national security and be strong again, we will get our economy back in shape and understand the value of a dollar. We'll value every person and know that government works for the people and not the other way around. And we will make sure that America is strong and proud and back on track. Join us at NikkiHaley.com. God bless you all. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you.
All right, well, are we fired up or what? To fire Joe Biden in 2024? All right, I want to invite my family back up again because this is why we do this, right? Our families, our friends, our neighbors, we are fighting for Iowa values, fighting for those heartland values, and fighting for American values. I want to say a quick thank you. You see the people wearing the red Ashley's BBQ Bash shirts? Those are our wonderful volunteers. They made this event happen. I want to say thank you to everyone who's volunteered to help our campaign. Thank you so much. All right, we'll see you all for the Iowa caucuses. Remember, Iowa picks presidents. Thank you so much.